places that we, as a charity, have partnerships with, such as the orangutan sanctuary in Borneo.
Mm-hmm.
We have a bear sanctuary in Romania. There are places that people can go, and that's actually something we are working to do with the tour operators we're talking to now, is to identify venues that, are either already there and already good in terms of how the animals are treated, or to work with them to actually identify venues that we can then transition in partnership and actually help them to improve. So we're really keen to reach out to existing venues that are not good and actually help them to develop into something good. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd really just encourage people to do as much research as you possibly can. Don't always take the first review or the first bit of advice you say, as the recommended, as the right thing to do. Come onto our website, worldanimalprotection.org, and look up all the work that we're doing on this, and you can definitely find advice on there about the venues that are good to go to. But just, my advice is don't make any assumptions about these attractions. If, broadly speaking, if you can ride it, touch it, pet it, any of these things, there's cruelty involved, and try to avoid those as much as possible. You can go and see animals elsewhere in the wild where they won't have that kind of cruelty inflicted on them.
Yeah, the research is very important. I worked at an animal sanctuary 5 years ago. It seems like yesterday, but it's 5 years ago. And we wanted to repeat the experience, but when we looked into the different sanctuaries, they were basically making orphans of the cubs, right, so that you can work with lion cubs, or you can work with tiger cubs, or why there would be a tiger in South Africa, I don't know. So yeah, it's very important. Even the tour operators felt, well, of course it's fine, but if you look into it, it really isn't.
It really isn't. And actually that issue of breeding is one of the toughest, but it's one of the most important things that we're calling for a stop to it. When we define what is a good wildlife venue, one of the things is that they're not breeding, because it's just exacerbating the problem. But it's also very difficult because they know tourists want to see young animals. They want to see these cute babies. But that's just not, it's just not the sustainable or ethical thing to do. And like I said, it just fuels the fire.
Good morning, sir.
Hi, I'm checking in for my flight.
Lovely. Business or pleasure?
Holiday.
And where will you be staying?
With my parents, they live over there.
Lovely. Travel insurance?
Oh, no thanks.
Have you got travel insurance?
No.
Checked to see if you need any vaccinations?
No.
Checked out the local laws?
No, look. Why do I need to know all this? I'm just staying with my parents.
Is either of your parents A local lawyer, or the chief of police, B, fabulously wealthy, C, the owner of a private plane with its own fully trained medical staff, or D, none of the above?
D?
Lovely. Are you a superhero and in fact immortal?
Things can go wrong on holiday abroad, even if you're staying with family. So check it out before you check in. Find out more at gov.uk/knowbeforeyougo.
You can follow me on Twitter @holiday_hut.
Still to come on the travel show, there's travel news, including a story about Ryanair and some bomb threats up via Twitter. And also, I can't avoid it, I'll have to mention the EU referendum as well. And the travel companies are getting in already with what their views on whether the UK should stay in or out. Coming to my end of my conversation with Alyx Elliot from World Animal Protection, and we're going to start this session with me actually confessing about an animal attraction. I went through your report and you came out with the worst two, and I have to admit I've been to the second one, the turtle farm. I used to be a travel agent, and the Cayman Islands Tourist Board took some travel agents over and showed us all the sites.
Right.
They didn't take us to the dolphins because there was a bit of a bad feeling about how the dolphins are kept, but they took us to the turtle farm. So do you think that tourist boards that are based in the UK and taking travel agents out can do more to cover this sort of thing and perhaps ignore what you've seen as being a cruel attraction?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anyone goes to an attraction and sees something they're not sure about, please do report it on TripAdvisor, for example. Write a review and be honest about that. I think a lot of times, people aren't looking for the bad stuff. They're enjoying their experience. They're on holiday, and that's understandable. But at the same time, we need sort of accurate reviews, and we need people to raise their hand and say, actually, that didn't feel right. That didn't look right. And with the Cayman Turtle Farm, that's a classic example. I mean, a lot of it does happen behind the scenes, but again, that's handling animals crammed into, thousands of them crammed into single tanks it's just not natural, right? And then, you see stories in the news just in the last few months about huge disease outbreaks there. And not only is that awful for the animals, but it's a risk to people too. So, do your research as much as you can. Again, as I said, come to us for advice. But, anything that involves handling wild animals like that, it's generally speaking a no-no. And I think, the more that you can demand the facts from tour operators, people you're going through, the more that you can sort of hold them to account and say, how do you know for a fact that animals are not treated badly? The more pressure these tour operators are ultimately going to feel to make sure that they're being responsible and they really know exactly what it is that they're selling to their customers.
Yeah, I've just had a travel trade magazine come through, and there's a picture of some travel agents have been taken over to Florida, and they're all standing there with a dolphin. So I suppose that helps.
Yeah, exactly. It's as much as educating the industry as much as the tourists as well. You're right. Yeah.
So what would be your desired outcome from this study?
Really, that tour operators and tourists, recognise the reality of what's going on and don't turn a blind eye to it. Ultimately, it's two things: the tour operators to stop selling elephant rides and similar attractions that are in this report. Look for alternatives. We will work with you to find those alternatives. But also tourists, don't book them. Don't book anything that you think could have cruelty to animals, any of these attractions in here and anything else that's similar. Just please do think twice and look for alternatives. I completely understand wanting to see wildlife in the wild. I've been there and done it myself, but you just got to think really, really carefully. And, we're running campaigns to convince the biggest tour operators to sort of lead the way and stop selling tickets to these venues. So you can also help us join that campaign. Just visit our website. We've got lots more information on there. And together we'll do what we can to make sure that these venues either transition into something good or are shut down.
Do you have any tour operators who are signed up at the moment?
Yes, we do. We're in a lot of conversation with many of them. We've got I think it's got 89 tour operators now globally have actually signed our pledge to stop elephant rides, that is. Okay. We're talking to them as well about other animal attractions, more broadly than just that. And we're looking in the UK now as well as we're sort of in communication with all of the main tour operators at the moment in the UK, and later this summer we will be really ramping that up and focusing on those tour operators that are not responding in the way that we hope that they would. So watch this space for this summer is my advice. Okay.
You've mentioned the website once already, but can you just remind us what it is, please?
Yes, the website is worldanimalprotection.org.uk.
Okay, thanks Alex, thanks for your time. There will be a link to the World Animal Protection Report on my Facebook page, facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. But I'm just going to run through some of the numbers which popped out at me when I looked at the report. And one is that there's at least 560,000 wild animals are currently in wildlife tourist attractions across the world, which is an awful lot. Globally, tourism is valued at over $1 trillion and accounts for 9% of global GDP each year. 80% of tourists cannot see the negative impact a wildlife tourist attraction has on animal welfare. Up to 4 million tourists annually visit the negative welfare attractions which have been assessed by the study, such as the turtle farm. I have to say, I did contact the turtle farm after I recorded the interview to see if they had any response to the report's findings, but they've chosen not to come back to me. So I did give them the opportunity to give their side, but they've not taken it. And the report identified and assessed 24 different types of attractions, and they found that 75% were negative, had negative impact on animals, and 25% had a positive. So anyway, you can read the report for yourself. The link will be at my Facebook page, as I said. It's very difficult. I love animals, but if I see a cuddly Prince Julian type animal or something like that, it's the urge not to give it a cuddle because it shouldn't be where it is. it's really difficult, but it's something we should do. As far as I'm concerned, as tourists, we shouldn't give money to people who are treating animals badly. It will mean that we can't interact with the animals we want to see, but I think that's better that we don't and see them in their wild states, go on a nice, proper organised safari, properly run safari area and free of poachers and everything, instead of having your photograph taken at a hotel or when you're on a visiting attraction and there's a drugged up line or something. But anyway, that's me. I'm trying not to preach to you because you have your own choices. But please let me know what you feel about this. Do you see a problem? Do you agree with the report? Do you think that animals are there to entertain and that's all there is to it? In the paper this morning, there were some polar bears in a circus, which looks really bad. And I don't understand. I'm starting to waffle again. Stop waffling. Anyway, let me know your views on animal tourist attractions at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. And please do give the report a read when you get a moment.
You can keep up to date with travel news and leave me a message at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show.
Still to come on the show, travel news, including that story about Twitter and Ryanair. But as I said at the beginning of the show, I'm going to be talking about social media and travel. This is part of the information I share at johnguinn.me, which is the online version of the book I published a few years ago about how to plan and research the ultimate holiday. The social media part comes under chapter 3, which is finding the right destination. And instead of going through the whole chapter, I'm just going to do the social media part to give you some tips on how to research and plan your trip. If you live in Herts, Beds and Bucks and probably North London and you're a member of a social group, I do presentations on how to use the internet to plan your travel. So if you want somebody to come and talk at your group, contact me via facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show and I come and give a talk to your group. I've done WIs and Rotaries. I did a school once and the school was the toughest audience. There's nothing like standing there looking up and I was a sixth form and then you got pockets of teenage girls giggling at you. It's very, very challenging to keep on track and to keep going and not to regress to back how I used to be at school. But anyway, I'm going off topic yet again. So if you want somebody to talk about how to use the internet and travel, do let me know. I'll come and give a talk to your group. But anyway, back to social media. This is an important resource when you're researching your trip. It's basically websites and using websites that have their content supplied by members of the public. On these websites, you'll find people who are willing to share their experience, either by answering questions you may have or by just writing about their trips. For example, this is something I did for a customer a long time ago. I needed to find out how to get between two Ukrainian towns by bus. I couldn't find it. The websites I could find were in Russian or Ukrainian, and I don't know if you've seen Russian and Ukrainian websites. Some of them have very unsavoury adverts around them, so I wasn't very confident in using the website anyway. So I went on social media, I asked the question, got the answer. I even got tips on how to make sure you're safe when you're going to the bus station because it was a bit rough. So you can find out just about everything on social media. And for this purpose, I'm classing social media websites as review websites, blogs, forums, and websites such as Facebook and Twitter. So to experience a great holiday, you'd need to put the work in. You could spend ages using a search engine to research each part of your trip, or you could just ask for help like I did with Ukrainian buses. If you ask, the answers could be with you in seconds, or maybe when you've woken up the next day. It took a couple of days for me to get my answer. Finding great hotel rooms or other types of accommodation, local restaurants, things to see and do, and other hidden gems should be top of your research list. And it's very important that you do that, otherwise you can be staring at your hotel room for 2 weeks. So in the past, you might have been able to get this information from your travel agent or maybe a guidebook. But now in the age of price cutting, travel agents just don't have the time to really tell you about the destination, and guidebooks are out of date before they're even printed. Social media allows you to find out the facts, tourist traps and poor service, in fact anything you need to know before you book. So using user travel reviews, you can pick out the best restaurants, hotels and tours.